Video game movies. They've been around for, well, almost as long as video games have. And let's face it, they're not always brilliant. There have been some real stinkers in the mix, like the unbelievably bad Far Cry and the mind-numbingly awful Max Payne, but then again we've also been gifted some wonderful guilty pleasures along the way. With Detective Pikachu just out and a Mortal Kombat reboot confirmed for 2021, it certainly doesn't seem like game-to-film adaptations are going away. So Aoife, Ian and I got together and made you this: 6 video game movies we genuinely love. Surprisingly, Ian's first up with 1995's Mortal Kombat.
Alright, look, I'm all up for brand new movies based on video games. I think that's fine, but honestly, I don't see the need for another Mortal Kombat movie. The perfect one was released back in 1995, and from what I understand about this new movie, it's going to be following a character who's not even in the games. So, what's the point? The original movie came out at the perfect time, when Mortal Kombat fever was at its peak. Now, I know Mortal Kombat is popular now and that the new game broke loads of records, but it's just nothing compared to back then in the 90s, especially the year when the movie was released, because we were already super hyped for the release of Mortal Kombat 3, which was due out a couple of months later. Incidentally, Mortal Kombat 3 is my favourite Mortal Kombat game of all time, so 95 really was a golden year for Mortal Kombat fans such as myself. So, for a bunch of kids who were Mortal Kombat mad, going to see this in the cinema was an incredible experience. Sure, it may seem cheesy and lame by today's standards, especially thanks to some of its lame-ass early 90s CG. Hello, Scorpion's weird, pointy, hook-hand bird thing, whatever it is. But I didn't mind much back then because it was just an incredible buzz seeing all of my favourite characters pulling off their signature moves on the big screen. I have these ultra-vivid memories of getting this huge buzz of excitement in my chest when Liu Kang finally did his bicycle kick on Reptile during their epic showdown. And the fight between Scorpion and Johnny Cage in the Netherrealm was just pure 90s rock band music video cheese fest. It was just great. Honestly, there's just so much stuff I love about the first Mortal Kombat movie that it'd be impossible to list it all here. But, having the Connor McLeod of the Clan McLeod, aka Christopher Lambert, as Raiden was just perfect casting at the time. Oh, and the bit where Johnny Cage does his nutcracker move on Goro, well, that still makes me giggle to this day. Whew, that's one way to finish him, I guess.
1994's Street Fighter is an awful, awful film, and I love it. It's hammy, the editing and dialogue are borderline unintelligible, and the script plays fast and loose with pretty much every character's motivations and backstory. But it's genuinely hilarious. A perfect time capsule glimpse into 90s video game culture as perceived by mainstream Hollywood. It's even more fascinating when you read about the film's tortured production. Untrained actors, substance abuses, impossible deadlines, ratings issues, military coups, narcissism, and pretty much every production department's worst nightmares were realised at one point or another during the grueling 10-week shoot. Ming-Na Wen, who plays Chun-Li, has said that she fully expected her career to be over after Street Fighter's release. And, sadly, it turned out to be unworthy of the title of famed character actor Raul Julia's final on-screen appearance as M. Bison, although he gave everything he had to the role even while suffering from terminal stomach cancer. Fight scenes are spliced together with footage from elsewhere in the film just to try and make sense of what's happening. Every character barely knows how to human or really how to fight, and the sets are honestly laughable. The thing is, it's incredibly entertaining. It's camp, it's colourful, it's very, very silly, and watching it in 2019, it is incredibly meme-worthy. It doesn't take itself seriously, and I can't watch a single scene without laughing my head off. And how many video game films can you really say that about?
My first pick in this list of video game movies we love, surprisingly, is Silent Hill, but I feel like this particular choice should come with a bit of a caveat, because I'd never actually played Silent Hill when I went to see it with some friends in the cinema all the way back in 2006. And maybe that's the key to enjoying a video game movie. I think the reason we often find these things difficult to watch is because they're taking a beloved franchise, something we've poured countless hours into, and just doing it weirdly. Video game films often miss or straight up discount the things that make the games appealing in the first place, and that can make them hard to stomach. Not having played the game in question in the first place, however, is an easy way to take the film at face value. So, when I first saw Silent Hill, I saw only a pretty decent horror film. It's not without its problems, of course. As much as I love Sean Bean, I'm not sure the whole concerned father fails to help in any meaningful way arc was truly necessary, but it's also got loads of atmosphere, some strong performances, and some brilliant character design. It's a Silent Hill game on fast forward, basically. There isn't the time to go investigating quite as many locations in minute detail as you can expect from one of the video games. Instead, the action steadily ramps up to a gore-spattered finale, keeping you invested and filled with a vague sense of dread throughout. And you know what? I ended up playing Silent Hill in an episode of Late to the Party with Ian recently, and it was only then I realised just how far the movie adaptation goes to try and recreate the iconic Silent Hill atmosphere. Apart from the scene where some Johnny Cash plays, the entire soundtrack is taken directly from the games. The monsters, like the nurses, were all played by dancers so they could get the creepy movements right, and the way they look is pretty spot on. There's an impressive attention to detail throughout, basically. Apparently they made around 100 versions of main character Rose's costume, going from bright and clean colours to a filthy, bloody patina by tiny increments that are barely noticeable. Is it faithful enough to the source material to avoid annoying Silent Hill fans? I don't really know, I didn't play enough to say for certain. Is it a pretty decent horror film, though? Yes, it is.
I don't really know why I like Super Mario Bros. The movie so much. I know deep down it's a terrible, terrible mess and that everybody involved with it is like super embarrassed about it, but it's one of the very few video game movies that I've rewatched multiple times. And that's not just so I could take the piss out of it, although I do that quite regularly. I mean, taking the piss out of it is super easy. It has such a weird-ass, uncomfortable vibe, one that's the polar opposite of the games. And I remember watching it for the first time when I was a wee nipper and being so confused by it all. The entire movie had this grimy, bad acid trip aesthetic to it, although that probably wasn't helped by the fact that I watched it for the first time on a pirate VHS tape. But even without the piracy quality resolution, almost nothing in the movie was accurate to the games. The Goombas, they're completely wrong, with tiny little dinosaur heads and huge bodies, rather than being like mushrooms with tiny bodies and big heads. The Mushroom Kingdom, or Dino Hatton at least, is more like 80s New York than a magical land full of giant toadstools. And don't even get me started on Toad, one of the most well-known characters in the games, and they turn him into a busker who has about 3 minutes of screen time. Like, what the fungus? Yoshi was done okay, I guess, but I think the only character that was accurate to its video game counterpart in any way was the Bob-omb. Honestly, it's amazing how they got Mario so wrong, but I guess it's even more amazing that, for all its faults, I still think that it's great. I guess nostalgia is the main reason I love the movie so much. The release of it was a big event, and it came out when I was massively into anything Nintendo, so it was constantly being advertised and promoted in all of the gaming magazines that I read. In the end, I even managed to see the movie before it was released in the UK, thanks to the pirate copy my mate's dad managed to acquire, and that made the whole thing feel even more special, I guess. Oh, but what does annoy me is that 26 years later, I'm still waiting for that sequel that was teased in the post-credits scene with Daisy. So if someone can get around to making that sometime soon, that'd be really appreciated. In fact, I think Buena Vista Pictures, who distributed the film back in the day, is now owned by Disney. So, you know, Disney, you've got the money. Super Mario Brothers the movie too. All right, Bob Hoskins is dead, but CGI, innit?
Okay, so this one is cheating a little bit as the film isn't even out yet. And the reaction to this trailer was so extreme and so negative that the creators at Paramount have confirmed that they're going to be redesigning and rearranging quite a bit of it. But as you might have guessed with my other selection, Street Fighter, I love bad films. And the upcoming Sonic the Hedgehog movie looks like it could be the next humdinger. While the last couple of decades have added a thick layer of CG gloss to any video game adaptations that have graced our cinemas, for me, they've mostly lacked that element of fun that 90s movies like Street Fighter, whether consciously or not, brought to the table. Whatever you think of Sonic, that the design looks awful, that the plot seemingly makes no sense, that the dialogue is ropey at best, you're probably right. But who can say that they walked away from watching that trailer with nothing to talk about? There are few things that bring people together quite like hating something collectively, so even if the Sonic the Hedgehog film is trash, it's likely going to be the kind of trash that we'll be giggling over together. And also, it's worth every penny to see Jim Carrey have this much fun in a role again.
The doctor thinks you're basic.
Listen, pal, I don't know if you realize
I'm sorry, Major. What was your name?
Benny. Nobody cares!
Okay, so if Aoife can cheat a bit by picking a film that isn't out yet, then I can definitely cheat by including not one, but 6 films, all from the same series. In my defence, mind you, you can't talk about one without discussing the rest, because they are all equally over the top, and quite frankly, delightfully bloody awful. I'm talking, of course, about the Resident Evil series. The Resident Evil film franchise started out by tossing all of the main characters aside and instead introducing us to Alice, who at the start is suffering from amnesia and thereby conveniently ignorant of the fact she's a killing machine employed and, indeed, part engineered by the evil Umbrella Corporation. Never mind that though, because here come absolutely loads of zombies for her to kill. The second film, to its credit, at least attempts some fan service by setting itself in Raccoon City, dragging Jill Valentine, Lickers and Nemesis into the mix, but after that tenuous hold on the franchise, the Resi movies go completely off the rails. Mad Max-style convoys through the desert, weird mind control devices, Barry Burton not saying a damn thing about who's the best at unlocking. It's all there, and it's all remarkably stupid. These films are a real guilty pleasure of mine because 1, it's always fun to watch Mila Jovovich beating the crap out of her enemies, and 2, because these movies ask, nay, demand, that you disengage all critical faculties while you're watching. It's a mindless, pompous, nonsensical disaster of a cinematic franchise, and that is exactly why I love it. And there you go, 6 video game movies we love, surprisingly. What are your favourites? Did any of our picks surprise you? Let us know in the comments. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, there are loads more from Eurogamer for you to watch. Some of those should be on screen now, so do give one of those a click. Do like, subscribe and ring the bell icon so you don't miss anything else from Eurogamer, but most importantly, thank you very much for watching and have a lovely day.